Well, good evening, everybody out on Facebook. This is Tuesday night Bible study. So thank you for joining us tonight. And we're going to talk about something that we're actually very well familiar with in this congregation. And those of you that have watched us online enough know about this also. And we kind of repeat some things sometimes, but there's a reason for it. Sometimes you just have to hear certain things over and over and over just to really get the gist of it and the flavor of it and everything like that. And especially if it's something of an important nature. And these things are, everything's of an important nature. But so tonight what we're going to talk about, because it's so important. And we just see a lot of times people not doing what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And we really need to make sure that we are doing it. So tonight we're going to talk about how decisions determine your destiny. And, we all know in here, and we just recently, I believe, were talking about this on a Sabbath, not too far away. But, so we're going to talk about it again, because especially in this time that we're in, these days that we're in, we're in the last of the last days. And every decision we make has relevance. And we need to make sure we're making the right decisions about things, the right choices about things. So I'm going to read you this first, and this was actually, this was kind of like really what sparked my thing to do for tonight. But so this article is actually by Andrew Womack, and actually it sparked even more because we were discussing this in our Bible study yesterday during our homeschool co-op. This is one of the things that we had read. So decisions determine destiny. So I'm sure you've heard the statement, life is a series of choices. To some, that's too simple, but it really is true. Your decisions determine your destiny. Recently, we took a vacation. We didn't get in the car and just go in any direction. We had a goal, and every turn we took was calculated to help us reach our destination. We checked the map often and made a few adjustments when we missed a turn. We didn't do it perfectly, but we got to where we wanted to go because of decisions. Likewise, you make decisions every day that move you closer to your God-ordained destiny or away from it. There is no such thing as just sitting still or putting God's plan for your life on hold. That's a deception. God's will for you is intertwined with His will for others, and that is a constantly moving and changing dynamic. It's like catching a flight. You can miss it. It's true that the Lord can get you to your destiny another way. He's certainly smarter than a GPS device that recalculates when you miss a turn. There is always a later flight with God. But who wants the hassle, disappointment, and delay that comes with missing a connection? I want God's best, don't you? Now I'm going to pause there for a second. I just want to talk about that statement that he made. Who wants the hassle, disappointment, and delay that comes with missing a connection? So we have to realize that, when we're believing for something, no matter what it is. So say someone's believing for healing for something, and Yahweh has given you specific wisdom, insight, and stuff for what you need to do. Maybe even something as simple as stop eating that certain food, because we know that a lot of times food, the wrong foods can mess with our body and cause things to happen and stuff. But if He has given us the answer, well, it's that food that you're eating that's causing that to happen in you, you have a choice to make. You have a decision to make, okay, I'm either going to stop eating that, or I'm just going to keep eating it because it makes me feel good, I enjoy it whatsoever. To make that wrong choice, well, I'm going to keep eating it because I like it, it makes me feel good, is causing you to delay your blessing and your healing. See, our wrong choices can block our blessings. Our wrong choices can delay what we're believing for. And it's like, why would we ever want to delay what we're believing for? You could use the example also of, say, you're believing for a spouse. If somebody is believing for a husband or a wife, your decisions will determine how quick your future husband or wife comes to you. You can delay it. You could block the blessing. You could delay it if you're not making the right choices and right decisions. If you're just doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, or Yahweh's told you to do something and you're not obeying it or whatever, and you're believing for a man or woman to come into your life, a future spouse, you can delay that. You can delay or block that blessing. And it's like, why would we ever want to delay blessings from coming to us? Why would we ever want to be the cause of blocking a blessing? Why would we ever want to be the cause of blocking our healing, blocking our prosperity, blocking a mate, blocking whatever it may be, or delaying that? So that's why, our decisions are so important. Our choices are so important. And like we talk often in here, our decisions don't just impact us. Our decisions impact our children, our spouses, our families, our friends. And we have seen many times across the board how our choices, our decisions has impacted people. We're talking about something the other day, I don't quite recall what it was, but it was like somebody had made a decision, and that decision, and it was a good decision, but that decision impacted hundreds and hundreds of people. Well, what if they had not made that decision? What if they had not decided to follow Yahweh and do what they were supposed to do? All those people would not have been impacted. All those people would not have been influenced in the right way. So that's why we have got to make sure we're making the right choices. We're making the right decisions. And it all bases on making godly decisions, godly choices. So when you are on a road trip, those who are ahead of you can be valuable sources of information. It doesn't matter how you feel about them personally. The fact that they have already driven the road gives them insights that you need. When I read that, it instantly made me think of Mom. Mom has been there, done that, gone on before us in so many things, and she has the insight. It's kind of like somebody who has done something and they have the experience in doing it and they know what they're talking about and stuff, and you might just be learning, and it's like you listen to that person who's had the experience. It's like kind of like, I worked at a bank. Then I worked at a bank for years, and I was the one that when new people came in, I trained them. And why was I the one that trained them? Because I had the experience, I had all those years behind me, and I could properly train somebody to come into that position and do that position right. I had the experience. So, and that's with Mom. She has the insight. So when, I remember in particular this one girl that came into the bank that I was training. She was going to be a teller, but she was transferring to another branch. And, she was good. And the reason why she was good is because she asked questions. She asked question upon question, especially if she didn't know something, she asked the question. A lot of times you have people, they won't ask the questions because they'll just be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to figure it out, or I know it, or whatever. But when you ask questions, that's how you learn. So I had the insight to be able to teach her something to help her be successful in that position she was going to have at the bank, no matter, wherever it ended up leading her to. And that's how it is with Mom. Mom has the insight. Mom's driven so many roads before us. Okay, Mom's been on the highway, byways, back roads, through the mountains and the valleys, and, across the country and back multiple times. Okay, and she has so much insight, and that insight helps us make the right choices and decisions. So, the fact that they have already driven the road gives them insights that you need. They can tell you what accommodations and restaurants are available, or they can let you know of a wreck or construction ahead and then advise an alternate route. You would be foolish not to draw on the insights of others who have gone before you. With that in mind, you need to be making sure that you're paying attention to what these people are saying. So like I said, the thing with Mom, valuable, valuable insight that can help people make choices that have changed their lives for the better. There are people just like you that have challenges, failures, pasts, and even successes that stood in the way of them following God's will for their lives. But with a few good decisions, they made their lives count. So it tells two testimonies in here, and I thought they were really interesting, these two testimonies. So take, for instance, Kevin and Rachel Dowling. They were living on the streets of New York, homeless and helpless. Now this kind of hit because there's quite a few of us in here, those of us that deal with the homeless and stuff like that. Homeless and helpless, they were drug addicts with no good future. But through a woman at one of the soup kitchens they frequented, they found the Lord and his love. 5 years later, they were free from drugs, but still lacked direction for their lives. They decided to come to Charis Bible College, and everything began to change. Not only have they been set free from the feelings of unworthiness and shame that dominated their lives, but now they are bringing others into their newfound freedom. The ones who used to sleep in cardboard boxes and eat out of trash cans are now providing food and the gospel to thousands of other people who need a new destination. Now think about that. They had a decision to make. They had a choice to make. What if they had decided it's better just to live in these cardboard boxes? It's better just to go to the soup kitchen twice a week or whatever they were doing. These thousands of other people would not have been impacted. But they made a choice, and their choice not only impacted them, it impacted so many others. Or take Leland Shores, who was a successful businessman in Dallas, Texas. While he lay on the floor, close to death, his life flashed before him, and he knew that all of his successes were worth nothing. When he recovered, he made the decision to sell everything he had and dedicate his life to the Lord. That one decision led Leland to Charis Bible College and eventually Africa, where he helped establish the Discipleship Evangelism course, which has now reached nearly 500,000 people. Now, this was a man who was lying on the floor, almost dying. Okay, I mean, he was dying. He had something happen to him, and he was dying. And he made the choice to yell out to Yahweh, to believe God, to trust him. And, you know, he came, and now look at that. 500,000 people. 500,000 people. He also established the Andrew Womack Ministries bookstore in downtown Kampala, Uganda, where hundreds of people have been born again and baptized in the Holy Spirit. If that weren't enough, Leland started a Bible college in Uganda with over 100 students who are changing Uganda. Leland died unexpectedly in June 2001, but in the 11 years since he made the decision to make his life count for the Lord, he did more than most people do in a lifetime. And because Leland's emphasis was on discipleship, his disciples are continuing the work he began. Numerous people have been raised from the dead through those Leland reached. Disciples are ministering on the radio daily, and others are holding crusades with signs and wonders. Leland's impact is just beginning. Now think that. It only came to a choice. Really, how simple. It came to a decision. One decision that he made. And it impacted all these people, has reached all these people's lives. Carrie Pickett is a young woman who came to our college fresh out of high school. She had known that the Lord had a call on her life since she was a little girl, but she was transformed by the Word and her missions trip to Russia. God put a love in her heart that she has been following that she had followed for 13 years while in Russia. Some would think of all that Carrie gave up to go to Russia. She's an attractive young lady who put her personal desires for a family on the altar to serve the Lord. Now that's interesting too. Now how many times have we heard that, and how do we know? You know what? When you say yes to Yahweh and you're doing what He's asked you to do, He'll make sure everything else is okay. I remember one time when I think it was mine and Scott's first trip to, I believe it was our first trip to Haiti. I don't know if it was the first or second or whatever, but it was in the interim of when we were moving from New Hampshire to here. And we actually had just moved from New Hampshire to here, but we were living in an apartment. It was in the midst of us building our house, and a busy time. And it was like, oh man, this Haiti trip is falling right in the time when they had just poured the foundation of the house and they were going to start in the building of it. And it was like, we had all this stuff going on that needed our attention back here. We were, our house being built, and the builder calling him or I daily, and having to do this and having to pick out these things and buy this and whatever. But right, it's like, oh, but now we're going to go for a week to Haiti? And it was like, and it was it was a little bit of a struggle, because it was like, okay, I'm going to be into a completely, another country, a foreign country for a week, while in the natural, all my attention needs to be back here for stuff. But then I remember it was either mom or dad, I don't actually recall which one it was, saying, I think it was dad actually, you know that Yahweh is calling you to do this. And when he calls you to do something, he provides, he equips, he makes the way, and he protects. And he takes care of everything and anything that's going on back home. And it was like, okay, so it's like, we're going to make this trip to Haiti, which we knew was a trip we were supposed to be on, and Yahweh was in control of everything else. He was going to take care of everything else. And lo and behold, surprise, surprise, right? That week that we were gone, everything was perfectly smooth. Everything worked out the way it needed to work out. Payments that were supposed to be done that week, places that we were buying certain things from agreed to extend it another week until we got back. So all this stuff just worked out. And it was like, and we came back and it was like, oh, wow, all was well. All was well. So she put her personal desires for her family on the altar to serve the Lord. But God had the perfect husband for Carrie in Russia. She would have missed him if she hadn't followed the Lord to the ends of the earth. Now she and her husband Mike have a beautiful daughter, Eliana. How many times have we missed something because we made the right decision? Wrong decision. How many times have we missed something because we decided to take it into our own hands instead of following Yahweh? Now here it was. Here's what's the desire of most of young people and stuff like that. They think about getting married and having a family and stuff like that. But she was willing to lay that down on the altar because she knew God was calling her to do something else. And lo and behold, he took care of it. He gave her what her end desire was, but it was because she followed him first. And to the ends of the earth, to go into Russia of all places, okay? But what if she had taken that into her own hands? What if she decided, oh, no, you know what, I can't do that, go there, whatever type of thing? I guarantee, we know for a fact, it says she met her husband in Russia. Well, we know she would have never met Mike in Russia, okay? Never would have met Mike in Russia. How would her life have turned out now? What could it be? And that's where it all comes down to. You need to be following God. You need to know that it's a God thing. We talk about this all the time. Is it a good thing or is it a God thing? Not that good things are bad, obviously, good things are good, but if it's not from God, it's not meant to be what you were supposed to do. And also I think it was on Sabbath that we talked about this too. It's like you need to, or maybe it wasn't Sabbath, I'm not calling. They all just melt together type of thing. But just because somebody comes into your life doesn't mean it's from God. He could have sent anybody into Carrie's life. But just because somebody comes into your life does not mean it's from God. The person is there by one or two things. He's either there by Yahweh or he's been sent by the devil. And you need to examine both those things. And that's where it's even more important, where you need to know that you know, and you need to make the right choice. You need to make the right choice, especially in a situation like that. So with Carrie and Mike, their lives were made a huge impact. They not only established a Bible college in St. Petersburg, but they also had a goal of starting 1,000 new Bible colleges in 5 years. And they completed that vision. They were also responsible for getting books and television broadcasts translated into Russian. Through their efforts, the Gospel Truth television broadcast reaches over 160 million homes in Russia every weekday across 11 time zones. They also directed our Andrew Womack Ministries Russian office, which ministers to thousands of Russian-speaking people throughout the world. Think of that. Over 160 million homes in Russia. When I read that, I thought, whoa, isn't that kind of prevalent right now in today's day, okay? Just because of everything that's going on with Russia. But the word is going across Russia like that in such a major, major way. What would have all these people's lives have been like if they hadn't made the decisions they did? An even greater question might be, what would the lives of the millions of people they've affected had been like without them? Now that's the big question. It's the question, what would their lives have been like? But what the big question is, millions of people. We just talked about how decisions, choices impact not just yourself. We talk about that all the time in here. We have an example right here where a decision impacted millions of people. Every one of us has a God-ordained destiny that is designed to touch others. And we talked about this very recently too, because, on Sabbath we were talking about it, but we are carrying other people's miracles. And we got to realize that. We are carriers of other people's miracles. We are miracle carriers. We are carriers, like we're carriers of light, we're carriers of the word, we're carriers of love. We are carrying somebody else's miracle. The day that girl was overdosing on the pavement around here on the corner, I was carrying her miracle for her. It was Yahweh working through me carrying her miracle. And like I said on Sabbath, here it is, this girl ODing on heroin on the ground. Never ever in my life had seen anything like that before. Never have seen something like that before. I still have the picture emblazed in my mind of that girl, what she looks like, everything. And seeing her on the ground, unresponsive, not breathing, body convulsing. I mean, this girl's on her way out. But there was somebody there who was carrying her miracle. All because I was obedient, not to do my own thing, not to go to my favorite mailbox on the other side of the street. I was carrying her miracle. And what ended up happening? I said it on Sabbath. There they are having her in the stretcher, and they're putting her in the back of the ambulance, and she puts her hand up in the air and waves. I'm good. Now, just minutes prior to that, that girl was unresponsive. I mean, out, unresponsive, on her way out, to being put into that ambulance and raising her hand. What if, and I said this before, what if I had made the choice? No, I'm doing my routine. That's my routine. Or what if I had gotten in my head, what's the big deal? I'm going to that mailbox. Why do I have to go to that one? And spent too much wasted brain energy trying to figure it out. And when Yahweh tells you to do something, you got to do it like that. Because if you start to debate it in your mind and start to try to reason it out, more than likely you're not going to do it. The more time you let go between what Yahweh told you to do and you actually do it, the more time in that midst of it, you're probably not going to do it. That's why when Yahweh tells you to do something, you've got to do it like that. You've got to make the right decision. We are carrying other people's miracles. I don't think we can fully comprehend this. It is certain, however, that the lives of millions of people were changed simply because these heroes of the faith made the right decisions. Are you certain that the decisions you are making every day are the ones the Lord wants you to make? If you can't answer that affirmatively, then what is stopping you? Most people don't intentionally decide to miss their destinies. They just get busy with the cares of this life, and before they know it, they are in a rut that they can't seem to get out of. But remember, your life is the result of choices, your choices. You're where you're at today because of you, not because of anybody else. You're the one that made a choice. No matter what kind of background, past, life, you had a choice to make. You could make the wrong one or the right one. You're where you're at because of you, nobody else. Well, you don't know what they did to me. You don't know what my childhood was like. You don't know that they did this for me when I was your child. Blah, blah, blah. But you're the one that could have changed it. You can't sit there and point the finger and blame anybody else. You're the one that made the choice, if it was the wrong choice, to let that affect you. You're the one that could have made the right choice and be like, no, wait a minute. I'm going to turn this thing around. It doesn't matter what happened to me in my past. It doesn't matter what I may have grown up with or didn't grow up with. It doesn't matter where this person did this to me or whatever. I'm going to make the right choice. And I'm going to make sure that I do the right thing. And I'm going to make something of myself in a good way. It's your choice, nobody else's. And that's where a lot of people miss it because they're too busy blaming, well, it's their fault I'm like this. It is nobody else's fault you're the way you are. You're the way you are because of you. And that's what the truth is. It's because we've all had choices. Your life is the result of choices, your choices. Others can influence or hinder you, but your choices are the determining factor of your destiny. But, and well, you know about buts, and this is the good thing, it is never too late to make the right choices. You can turn the ship around. Okay, you may be setting out on the course and when you're supposed to, you're supposed to be going across the Atlantic, but you decide you're going to go down to Florida. You can turn that boat around and get it steering in the right direction. It is never too late to make the right choices. Well, you don't know what I've done. I've done this and I've done that and I've disobeyed this and I got myself into drugs. I got myself into alcohol. I got myself into pornography. So what? You can make the right choice. That all can be wiped away like that. Like that. Like it never even happened. That's been one of our popular, our favorite phrases around here. Like it never even happened. You can turn anything around. It doesn't matter how bad, we've heard stories of people that were serial killers. Okay, now they're preaching the word. Okay, there was one story of this guy that was a serial killer, killed something like 23 women. And now he pastors a church out in the Midwest somewhere. Okay? Why? Because he decided to make the right choice. But why even more so? Because somebody cared enough and was bold enough and didn't look at him as the serial killer, didn't look at him as a criminal or somebody who was bad and was afraid of him and you got to stay away from him, he's bad news. They looked at him the way Yahweh looked at him. And they imparted it to him. And that one person, whoever planted that seed into that man, helped that man make the right choice and turned his life completely around from living for the devil and eventually his destiny was going to be in hell, okay? But turned this man's life around, redeemed him from his past. Okay, this man should have been sent to jail for life sentence for all those women. But all of that erased. And now look at him, because of a right choice. That man could still be sitting in some maximum security prison somewhere, waiting for maybe the death penalty or whatever, but he made the right choice. And he turned his life around, and now he's pastoring a church and impacting all these people. One choice, one right choice. So see, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you were. Who you were is not how Yahweh sees you. Who you were is not how Yahweh created you. Who you were does not matter anymore when you make the right choice to turn it around and become who He's called you to be. Our spiritual lives start with making a choice. Seeking to know the Lord's will for our lives and the way He directs us is compared to what it says in Romans 12, 1 and 2. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to the Lord, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you will prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. The Lord showed me His will for my life was to be completely committed to Him. That's the main thing. I was only 17 years old at the time, but I started seeking to become a living sacrifice to the Lord with all my heart. That decision led to a miraculous encounter with the Lord in March of 1968 when God revealed Himself to me in a way that changed my life forever. I have never been and will never be the same. I made an absolute and complete, unconditional surrender to the Lord that has propelled me to the life that I live today. I've made thousands of decisions since then, but the decision to unconditionally follow God's will for my life started it all. All we really have to do is put the seed of God's word in our hearts, and it will change us effortlessly. That's how God established his kingdom. Decisions do determine destiny, but those decisions must be based on the truth of the Word. It was the Word of God that changed my life, and it will change your life as well. The Lord has awesome things planned for your life. Regardless of what things look like now, your positive decisions can change everything forever. And that's what it all comes down to. Your decisions determine your destiny. Your choices, your decisions, they're very, very important. Very important. And they do matter. And like I said at the beginning, you have one of two choices to make. You either make a wrong choice or you make a right choice. You're going to make a choice, but let's make sure it falls on making the right choice. The decision you make really does matter. So we're going to take a look at an example of a decision that a right decision made really mattered. And in this aspect, we're going to look, and this affected not just one life, but it affected another life. Now, this is a healing one, but like I said, in any area, whether it's with our healing, whether it's with our prosperity, our protection, our children, as parents, we have, I'm a work in progress when it comes to being a mom. Okay, my daughter's going to be 11 soon, and it's like I have 11 years of 11 years of training and learning, and it's like praise Yahweh for mom. Okay, because with the ultimate mother example in front of me to be like, no, this is really how you're supposed to do this. No, if she does that, she needs to get disciplined, okay? And it's like, especially for someone who was not in the discipline department, okay? And it's like, but as parents, we have got to get into us that our decisions impact our children. And we have said it over and over and over again in this church. As parents, as adults in these children's lives, we're highly accountable. We're highly accountable for wrong decisions that we may impart into them. That's why we've got to be making right choices, because our decisions will impact our children. And we have an assignment, a mission to make sure we're steering them in the right direction, so that as they grow, they're able to make the right choices. As they grow and get older, they're able to talk to somebody about the Lord, or impart into somebody to bring them to God. Every choice that we make matters, and they are important. And they're watching us. Even when we think they don't watch us, children have this way of just, it's like, how did you even see that? You weren't even around. Or how did you hear that? I mean, I didn't even let words come out of my mouth, but somehow you knew. Like, they have this knack sometimes of seeing and knowing things, and it's like, okay, where did you come from? Okay, how did you even know that was taking place? But their children are always watching us. They're always watching and they're always listening. Even when they're pretending like they're not listening, oh, I'm sitting here reading my book, I got my earbuds in. No, they're listening, okay? They're definitely listening. And that's why as parents and adults in their lives, we need to make sure we're carrying ourselves the right way, the proper way. But because we want to be. Not just because, well, it's behavior and we should be doing that. Because we want to be. Because we love our children so much. And our all-out thing is for their success. So let's turn to 2 Kings 4. And we talk about this one quite well all the time. We know this one very well because this is our all is well woman, okay? But this is an example of making a very important decision. She was faced with a choice to make. And she could have made the wrong choice or she could have made the right choice. And we'll see here, we all know what she did. The 2 Kings chapter 4, and let's start in verse 8. So one day Elisha went on to Shunem, where a rich and influential woman lived, who insisted on his eating a meal. Afterward, whenever he passed by, he stopped there for a meal. And she said to her husband, "Behold now, I perceive that this is a holy man of God who passes by continually. Let us make a small chamber on the housetop and put there for him a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. Then whenever he comes to us, he can go up the outside stairs and rest here." One day he came and turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Call the Shunammite." When he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to Gehazi, "Now say to her, you have been most painstakingly and reverently concerned for us. What is to be done for you? Would you like to be spoken for to the king or to the commander of the army? She answered, I dwell among my own people. They are sufficient. Later Elisha said, what then is to be done for her? Gehazi answered, she has no child and her husband is old. He said, call her. So Gehazi called her, and she stood in the doorway. Elisha said, at this season, when the time comes round, you shall embrace a son. She said, no, my lord, you man of God, do not lie to your handmaid. Interesting that she says that to the prophet. But the woman conceived and bore a son at that season, the following year, as Elisha had said to her. When the child had grown, he went one day to his father with the reapers. But he said to his father, my head, my head. The man said to his servant, carry him to his mother. And when he was brought to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. And she called to her husband and said, send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys, that I may go quickly to the man of God and come back again. And he said, why go to him today? It is neither the new moon nor Sabbath. And here was her first example of making a right decision. And she said, it will be all right. All is well. He asked her a question, and at that moment, she had a second to make a decision, to make it a right one or a wrong one. She could have said to her husband, oh my goodness, our son died, blah, 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 and this would be a totally different story, totally different outcome. But what did she do? She made the right choice, and she didn't get inside, she didn't get in her flesh and get in emotions and feelings, because this impacted another life. And she said, it will be all right. Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, ride fast, do not slacken your pace for me, unless I tell you. So she set out and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. Where the man of God saw her far off, he said to Gehazi his servant, behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run to meet her and say, is it well with you, well with your husband, well with your child? And she answered, her second right decision, it is well. Now, that second right decision, I would say, would have been probably harder to make than that first one, because more time had gone by. And it was more time for her to get into her head and think, more time for the devil to speak to her and say, your son is back there dead, your son is back. But what did she do? She instantly answered, it is well. Even when the question was asked, he pinpointed it. Well with the child? Well with the child? How many times does our flesh feel like being like, we want to just pour all out and say, oh, you don't know what happened to me today. Or you don't know my son is this and this and this and going through this. Your flesh, your emotions, and your feelings just wants to like blah, just wants to like vomit all the bad and the negative. And that's why Mom always says to us, stay out of your flesh. Stay out of feelings, stay out of emotions. You know, feelings are bad decision. We're talking about decisions. Feelings are very, very bad decision makers. But she answered, it is well. When she came to the mountain to the man of God, she clung to his feet. Gehazi came to thrust her away, but the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is bitter and vexed within her, and the Lord has hid it from me and has not told me. Then she said, did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? Bingo. That just caused a thing in Elisha to be like, whoo, okay, we're talking something here. Then he said to Gehazi, gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and go lay my staff on the face of the child. If you meet any man, do not salute him. If he salutes you, do not answer him. The mother of the child said, as the Lord lives and as my soul lives, I will not leave you. Another important decision to make, a right choice. I will not leave this man of God. I will not leave you. Kind of like with, not kind of like, but like with Ruth and Naomi. I am not going to leave you. Your people are my people. Where you go, I will go. Same right decision. And he arose and followed her. Gehazi passed on before them and laid the staff on the child's face, but the boy neither spoke nor heard. So when he went back to meet Elisha and said to him, the child has not awakened. When Elisha arrived in the house, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. So he went in, shut the door on the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. He went up and lay on the child, put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. And as he stretched himself on him and embraced him, the child's flesh became warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up again and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times and then opened his eyes. Then Elisha called Gehazi and said, "Call this Shunammite." So he called her, and when she came, he said, "Take up your son." She came and fell at his feet, bowing herself to the ground. Then she took up her son and went out. That whole situation was based on a mother making right decisions. What was it, 1, 2, 3? 3 times she was faced with a choice. 3 times she was faced. I say this or I say that. I can say this, whatever she was going to say was going to determine, just like with Mom with Ashley, whatever she was going to say was going to determine this child's fate. If she had, like I said, just was like blah, 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 all this stuff out of her mouth, that child would have stayed dead. We would have not have seen this miracle take place. But what she did do, she had a split second each time to make the right decision. And that those decisions led to this child being resurrected from the dead. That right decision led to breath being brought back into this life, and this child, this boy, living again. All because of a right choice. You're true that your right decisions are life or death. Your choices, whether, if they're wrong, are going to lead to death. If they're right, they're going to lead to life. And that's a good example right there. A right choice led to life. Right decisions lead to right living. Wrong decisions lead to wrong living. Proverbs 10:2 says, right living can save your life. Proverbs 11:4 says, right living can save you from death. Another translation said, right decisions can save you from death. Right decisions can save your life. And that's what it comes down to. Right decisions can save your life, but wrong decisions can ultimately lead to the path of death. So what are 4 steps or keys to making the right decision, to keeping ourselves on the path, on the track, to making sure we're making the decisions God is telling us to make? The first one, most important one, is the Word. The wisdom of the Word. You know, the Word is our answer. How many times do we hear Mom say that? The Word is your answer. All of our answers are in the Word. And the Word is what helps us to make the right decision. No matter what it is that we face, the Word covers it all. Whether we're facing whatever it is, anything, healing, prosperity, family situations, our children, anything like that. The answer is in the Word. And you keep yourself in the Word. You're a super easy target the moment you stop spending so much time in the Word. The moment you make the wrong decision, well, I don't have time today to get in my Bible, I'll do it later on. Most of the time later never comes. It never comes. Mom says always, you bookmark your days. You start the day and you end the day with the Word. And, you might seem to think sometimes, well, I was in my Word yesterday morning, and I was in my Word Sunday morning, and I was in it Saturday morning. Well, this morning I was in my Word. Well, tomorrow morning I'm going to probably have a busier day, so it'll be okay if I skip the Word tomorrow so I can get an earlier start on my day. That's a wrong decision right there. But that wrong decision because you need to be spending time in the Word. And you become an easy target when you start to let up on your time you spend with the Word, in the Word. The time that you spend with Yahweh. This is where we get our strength and our insight and our wisdom. That's why, it's just vital, especially in these days. Especially in these days that we're in right now. We're, like Rick Renner says, we're in a world gone crazy. And we need to be equipped. We need to be powered by the Word. And we can't even afford to take one morning off from being in the Word. You really can't. Because the devil is just sitting there waiting. Especially for believers, for all of us in here. He's just sitting there waiting for you to get lackadaisical or lazy, And, I don't know how many of you experienced this, but, I know there was a time past long, long time ago, where I let the busyness of life get in the way of stuff. So my word time had diminished and was not much at all, and even listening things wasn't much at all and stuff. And it affected me. I knew that it was affecting me. I could feel it. You know, you just feel differently when you're not spending time in the Word like you're supposed to be. And it affected me. But it affected me in a very bad way, where it was causing me to make not right choices. It was causing me to make decisions out of my flesh and not based out of the Word. You know, it was causing me to make decisions based out of a place of weakness instead of a place of strength. You know, we get our strength in the Word. This is, you know, this article was talking about a GPS. This is, like Dad said, this is our GPS right here. This gives us total direction for everything we will ever need in life. And this will never lead us wrong. This will never lead us into a back alley when we were supposed to be getting onto the highway to go somewhere. This will never lead us into a dead-end street. You know, this will never, I started laughing when this example came to me earlier. This would never lead us to going around a rotary once and twice and 3 and 4 times, okay? This will never cause us to do that. That's why we got to be in this all the time. This helps us stay on course. This helps us make the right decisions. Second one, praying in the Spirit. You know, and that's another thing Mom has been emphasizing so much lately, the importance of being in the Word and praying in the Spirit. You know, praying in that other language, because the devil doesn't know what you're saying. And he can't mess with what you're saying. It's like that secret language between you and Yahweh. And he knows exactly what you're saying, and you're decreeing. When you're praying in your Spirit, you're decreeing his perfect will. You're decreeing his word. You're decreeing his perfect will for that situation. And the devil can't do anything about it because he has no clue what's being said. And there's so much power in that. So much power in praying in the Spirit. You just start praying in the Spirit, and you can see things just change like that. You know, you could say something happens with somebody. Say there's a person, and this is actually true because I have read testimonies about this, but say there's a person who's just like out of control. You know, they're just out of control, and you're trying to talk to them, and they're not listening, and blah, blah. You start praying in the Spirit, and you'll just see instantly things just fall off of them, just melt away. Why? Because that praying in the Spirit is decreeing and declaring the weapon of the Word straight into that person. The devil has no clue, and there's nothing he can do about it. You know, he hears the English words. You know, he hears when you're speaking in English. He knows exactly what you're saying, and he could combat that. You could speak something, and the devil could be like, well, what about this? Well, you know, I say this. Well, he could say, well, what about that? But when you're praying in the Spirit, it brings you somewhere else. You know, it like brings you zoned right into that mission, your attack right into what the devil's trying to do, whether it be a person, a situation, and you can see things just change instantly, just a shift. And you could have somebody that was, you know, I keep thinking of like, I don't know why this keeps coming to me, but, you know, you could say a person came walking in here sometime, you know, like demon possessed or whatever. And you start praying in the Spirit, and you could just, gone. You have to know who you are and whose you are too, though, because you don't want to end up like the 7 sons of Sceva. Okay, just saying, you know. But, you know, you just pray in the Spirit. That's your attack. You target right into what needs to be targeted into. And those words, that secret language, just and it set that person free. Another powerful key. Third, praise and worship. So the Word, praying in the Spirit, and praise and worship helps us make the right choices. Praise, we know there's power in praise. You get into the power of praise, and you're praising God and stuff like that, and that puts you in a place where, you know, you're seeing clearly and hearing clearly, and you can make the right choice about something. In worship, you know, we find out who we really are in worship. And many times, I've had it happen to me in the midst of like worshiping Yahweh. Say I'm at home and I just really get into a song and I'm singing, and all of a sudden, boom, this answer drops into me. And it was an answer I had been looking for something for, say, like a week or so. But I entered into the worship, and it was like, you know, I'm faced with something, I got to make the decision, but I quite don't know what decision to make. And all of a sudden, just boom, the answer's right there. And it was the right decision. It was the answer that I needed to make the right choice, to see the right outcome take place. So word, praying in the Spirit, and praise and worship. And the fourth one, and interesting, somebody was asking me this, I think it was like last week sometime, and how do you know whether something's right or wrong? How do you know, how do you have that knowing that you're about to do the right thing? And the only one of the ways that I could explain it was because you feel a peace about it. There's a shalom about it. If it's from God, there should be no fear. There won't be any fear. No fear, no anxiety, nothing like that. When the devil is, trying to make you to make this decision about something, usually with it there's stress and fear and chaos and stuff. But if you feel peace and shalom, and you've been doing these things with the Word and praying in the Spirit and praise and worship and stuff, you just know there'll just be a shalom about something. And I was explaining to them because I instantly thought of, I learned so much from the journey of Yahweh telling Scott and I to move from New Hampshire to here. And just a huge step within itself, and things that I had to learn of that process. And I've shared before, it was like, my wrong decision was not to move to Massachusetts, okay? But I was, willing to do it and stuff, but my big time wrong decision that I wanted to make was not to move to Fitchburg at all. It's like, okay, no, give me Ashby or Ashburnham or we did look at a couple places. And interesting, all the places that we looked at outside of Fitchburg, we looked at 2 places in Ashburnham, we looked at somewhere in Ashby, actually 2 places in Ashby, we looked at somewhere in Westminster, and all of them were just like, no, we knew. It was just kind of like, no. And even like with the place in Ashburnham, it was right on the piece of land was right on the lake, and it was like, oh no, this is the right thing. It's right on the lake and stuff. But no, it wasn't. And so making that decision to move down here. But before we were doing that, and it's like, okay, we're building a house. We know that. We found the land. We're building a house. That was all what we were supposed to be doing. But then there was these other things that were coming in. And it was like, okay, are we supposed to buy a house first? Our original plan was we were going to buy a house while the house that we're in now was being built. And when that was done, we were going to sell the house that we were living in as like a profit type of thing, and turn around, get the income or whatever, and move into our house we're in now, and that's our house. And so we were looking at different houses in Fitchburg. And then this one in particular, Mom and Dad had come with us to look at this house, and it was over here on Charlton Street. A nice house, nothing wrong with it. It was a nice house. Big, nice, beautiful yard, quiet neighborhood, all that and stuff. And it was like, and it all looked good. And it was all setting up. This was it, right price, all this stuff. And even the real estate agent, Mom went to high school with her. And we walk in and they're like, Donna Robichaux? It's like, and Mom knew the real estate agent. So we were like, okay. And Dad was like, this is a nice house, nice house. You guys got to, come up with your decision and then come back to me. It's like, oh, Dad, I don't like it when you say that. Can't you just say no? Can't you just say yes? No, you guys talk about it, make your decision, and then come back to me. So like, okay, that puts more pressure on you, It's like, okay, I got to make sure I'm making the right decision here. So I remember Scott, and we looked at that house after a service here. It was a Saturday. It was a Sabbath, and we went later on in the day. And so we were still living in Nashua at the time. And it was like, so we went home, and we started talking about it normal and stuff like that. And, oh, it's a nice house. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what we were kind of thinking. We were going to buy a house and have this house built at the same time type of thing. And so Scott and I we started out, we're talking about it. But for those of you that know Scott and I really well, we don't fight. Unique can tell you this. She doesn't think she's ever heard us in an argument the 5 years she's lived with us. We just don't. We don't fight. We don't argue. We don't yell at each other. That's just not who Scott and I are. We're both so laid back. We just talk, Maybe a little elevated talks or kind of whatever, but we've never argued or yelled at each other or anything. But this one particular night, I still recall it. It was like it was last night. We were sitting in our bedroom talking about it, and we actually started to get into a fight about it. And that was the first sign. It was like, whoa, wait a second. We don't ever fight about anything. But there was so much chaos in the decision to buy that house. And finally, Scott said to me, and we were like, going at it type of thing. And finally, Scott was the one, he was like, you know what? We're not supposed to do this. He said, this would not be happening between you and I right now. This friction and this combativeness and this going at it and this just chaotic feeling and no peace whatsoever would not be happening if this was the right choice that we were supposed to make. So it was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. There was no peace about it whatsoever. When we made the choice that night, no, we're not buying this house. In fact, no, we're not buying any house. What we're doing instead is we're going full-fledged and we're having our dream home built, and we're going to live in an apartment while it's being built. When we made that decision, all of a sudden, there was just complete peace. I mean, I could still feel it, so to speak, like that night. There was just so much shalom. And Scott and I were back to being happy and doing our thing and stuff, And then I remember that, I think it was that few days later when we had come down here for Bible study, we went in Dad's office and told Dad what happened. And I was kind of like, what are you laughing at? He just started laughing. I don't know if he ever did that to any of you. It was like, Dad, this is what we know. And he just starts laughing. And I was like, it's kind of like a little irritated. I'm like, why are you laughing? This is serious. You're laughing at us. And he was just laughing. And then he sat back and he just, looked at Scott and looked at me and said, I knew you guys were going to make the right decision. It was like, could you just said that instead of laughing at us? But it was like, and Dad knew that those few days prior before. Nice house. Nope, not for you guys. But he wasn't going to tell us that because we had to. We had to make that decision. We had to learn to be able to be like, okay, we had to be able to hear Holy Spirit. Now, it was a little rough going at first, but we had to go through that process. And then Dad backed it up. It was like, that's the right decision. No, you're not supposed to build that house. So those are key things to helping us make the right choices, the right decisions. The Word, praying in the Spirit, praise and worship, and shalom. Romans 6:16 says, don't you realize that you become the slave of whatever you choose to obey? You can be a slave to sin, which leads to death, or you can choose to obey God, which leads to right living. So the choice is yours. Choose wisely. We've heard Dad say that so many times. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Choose rightly. Your choice, your decision determines your destiny. And make sure it's the destiny that Yahweh ordained for you. Amen. Well, thank you for all of you out there on Facebook for joining us tonight. I hope that you gathered something out of this, and we will see you at 11 o'clock on Sabbath.